Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us again today. My name is Libby, and I'm here with Francis Evans, who's deep trance channeler to the consciousness we call Mercredan. Francis is in the background getting himself into a nice trance-like state, ready to bring Mercredan through and speak with us again today. And today we're going to continue our series of conversations on personal and spiritual development topics. Today with the subject on separation and unity and the challenges and opportunities that can bring. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it the thumbs up, give it a like, and subscribe to keep updated. And now bring Francis in, who will allow us to talk to Mercredan, see what he's got to say. Over to you, Francis.
Greetings. Once again, it is my privilege and pleasure to come and spend these few moments of your time. As I have said, one writes the story of your life. You are the author of your ongoing drama, as it were, and other people fill the roles that are required. And yet their drama does not align with your own. They are making sense of their own experience in their own way. So shall we say, here is the classic example of polarity and paradox in action, enough to begin our conversation.
Interesting opening. Thank you. I wonder if it's going to relate to our conversation today around separation and unity. So I'd like to kick off a conversation, if you can, talk to us about separation and unity and the challenges and opportunities that bring to us in this physical experience.
Separation and integration, shall we say, are the ultimate experience of paradox. Everything seems to be an individual's experience, and yet somehow it manufactures itself into the overall dramatization of unified experience. Shall we say, on planet Earth, an individual seems to be able to operate within their own zone, make their own choices and so forth. And yet all of it relies, shall we say, on the incoming patterns of weather. That is, shall we say, the turbulent forces that make the planet as a unified whole. So you think that you can do something, and yet you are dependent on the environment in which you find yourself. So, shall we say then, it is a paradoxical nature of the union of integration and definition. Everything then emerges from one's perception of it. Shall we say, as an example, if you create a God, in your universe? Is it a helpful God, a protective God, a vengeful God? And whichever choice one has, one experiences the consequences of that. Maybe it is a no God, and then one experiences that. So one is creating the whole storyline from inside of consciousness. So shall we say, if consciousness is a unified, integrated whole, I want to say you often talk in terms, in modern terms, of your artificial intelligence, as if it is somehow taken after the human condition, artificial intelligence separate from another artificial intelligence. But in the end, they are all in possibility of becoming a single, united, intelligent front. And that is what humanity most is afraid of. Because human beings want to remain as separate entities rather than perceiving themselves as they are in, shall we say, in internal conditions. Does this describe it to some extent?
It does. Thank you. So how can we become better aware of the environment and the patterns around us so that we can create a life that's more integrated rather than, say, up against or resistant of the environment?
Shall we say, the old adage, as it were, know thyself, which is in truth to consider where you have come from, your conditioning, upbringing, the mythology and the storyline that defines yourself within your environment. So shall we say then you continue to recreate along the lines that one has traditionally focused upon. One is then as one thinks one is. And so one experiences an ongoing repetition of the patterns that are defined by that condition. However, if you consider your history, as it were, if one looks into one's, shall we say, upbringing, and I want to take that beyond one's parental upbringing into the upbringing that one brings forward with one. In other words, shall we say, the events and the conditions and the background, the environment, and so on are upbringing one with those conditions. You understand? So if one begins to unwind all of it back in towards the consciousness that is creating such events and so forth, one begins to realize that the creation arises from the story, much like your book or your cinematographics and so on, where one is watching or reading and one is engaged. One begins to feel into the world. One begins to feel its reality, even if it is depicting a world or well different from your own. You step into your character. You align with it and you begin to feel as it is. So shall we say then, the physical world is created by feeling into it. And thus the physical world can be, shall we say, distanced by feeling out of it. To recognize this is how a thing feels, but it is not what it is. It is, shall we say, a piece of imagination felt into. Do you understand what I'm saying? So shall we say you are an architect? You are designing a new kitchen. So you are drawing the kitchen and you are walking through it. You are feeling how it will work, how the flow will be, how the taps will be, and so on. You are inside your building, looking around and putting things in an organized space that is usable. Do you understand what I'm getting at? You are creating your new kitchen. And up until it is created in physicality, it is only an impression that is being felt into. Now, as it appears in the physical reality, it is a feeling that you can feel out of. Do you understand when one distances oneself from the creation?
So my next question was around how we can change the repetition or the patterns that we have been brought up with, all the conditions that we're through our upbringing. So what you're saying is that we could feel into a new, or feel out of our current patterns, design something new through feeling through it?
Of course, one first of all has to feel out of it. How? By feeling into it. You understand? First of all, you have to feel what it feels like to experience this from the position of knowing you created it. So you feel into it. Notice this is my creation of it. And now I am distant from it. It is something that I have manufactured. Now consider what improvements could be made. How would that affect who you are? Because, of course, you cannot change the external reality while you remain the same on the internal one. Shall we say then, creation follows consciousness. Does that?
So
always we are simply shining a light, because you cannot move in and, shall we say, change something for someone else.
So this is really focusing on our own self, our own story.
Realizing this is my story. If you were to write your own biography, you look at it and see, how did this occur? Well, of course, it occurred because of events, of interactions with others and with the environment. And so everything is interconnected, interdynamic. It is fluctuating in alignment with the whole. You understand? So, shall we say, you cannot escape self without, shall we say, recognizing the self is but another of the creations.
Thank you. So in terms of the transition or the changes in the shift in consciousness that is happening, my understanding is that we are heading towards a more unified humanity. Will that happen naturally over time, or is that something that we consciously need to make happen? And if so, how can we work towards that?
If you remember, I have said the new species is interconnected within consciousness. So shall we say, even as things begin to take, shall we say, to mature, as the new species begins to take a greater role, they are taking it as a unified force, even if it is unknown. Do you understand it? Even if they do not know that it is unified, it still is. And so a greater unification is naturally occurring as humanity evolves to recognize that it's very survival. In other words, if one is to create the notion, the storyline, shall we say, of a great race on another planet that is struggling to survive, what will it need to do? It will have to organize itself, operate as a unified force of being. And so you cannot continue to operate in separation. Do you follow what I mean? So nations give way to bigger organizations and to the unification of all and all levels of consciousness. So then the natural nature of the new species will, shall we say, first of all, recognize that which is out of alignment and discover how to isolate it so it does not cause greater problems. Naturally, of course. As this begins, shall we say, the evolution in consciousness also occurs at the same time. Why? Because the unification causes an increase of compassion, and furthermore, the general uplifting and thus the happiness of all concerned. So once it begins, it naturally begins to come together for the benefit of all.
Sounds very exciting. So
I want to say, thus you can see that a great fear arises with that. The paradox is that it emerges out of fear. Fear causes, shall we say, polarities at odds with each other. So while consciousness evolves, the physical reality becomes more tumultuous and at war with itself. Do you follow? The greater the war, the greater the integration happens, until the integration begins to isolate that which causes the disruption. As I have said before, the two worlds are separating out.
Yeah, thank you. So is the illusion of separateness there just so we can experience creating our own separate reality?
Of course, that is the very nature of consciousness, is, shall we call it, an art form. What is it that one wants to paint? But great works that express one's inner nature, one's inner consciousness. Even if you are taking the photographs or the movies and whatever it is, how does this reflect who I am? That is, then the separateness is shared through one's creative endeavors, and you become welcome into the whole. Paradox as always.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add on this topic for us today?
I want to say this because as soon as one begins to realize one is not creating a separated reality, one is writing, excuse the body, one is writing one's script, as it were, within the great tomes of life. One is creating one's own storyline that interacts, is interdependent on everyone else's agreement. So when one begins to realize this is the story of my life so far. And when you realize that you have come to a crisis, that is to a crossroads, and you stop for a moment and ask yourself, is this the road I want to continue on? And if not, then what of your probabilities, of your opportunities within consciousness, within your, shall we say, suitcase of ideals, one needs to bring into your moment? And what taking a different road will mean for those around you? Do you follow what I mean? If you are moving into conflict with someone, then they must drop out of your storyline. I think that is enough for today. So once again, it is a privilege to share with you such insights so that we are, shall we call it, lubricating the shift in awareness, in consciousness. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Francis and Mercredan, and thanks everyone for being with us today. If you've enjoyed this content, then please give it a like and subscribe to our channel to find future updates and future live channeling sessions. Delane will be back with everybody in 3 days' time, same time, having a conversation with Mercredan around how to overcome comparing ourselves to others. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thanks so much for being with us. Bye for now.